All right, we're going.
All right, good to go. All right, so now we are going to talk about planning. And so if we look here on our ROMA model, basically, so we're moving, we've kind of covered assessment, we covered planning. Now we're in the implementation phase. We're basically connecting our results-oriented management to our accountability. We're bridging those two stages. So a really good way to preface all of this information we're going to cover is one of the first sentences that accompanies one of Drucker's questions. And he says, the self-assessment process leads to a plan that is a concise summation of the organization's purpose and future direction. And so really the important thing about that, the big takeaway, is that your plan essentially, it's not created in a vacuum. Your plan is always founded in your mission and your need. You're not just making up your plan. So basically our plan should have something to do, of course, with the need we've identified and with our mission of our organization. We wouldn't have something like, our plan would entail, I don't know, offering driver's ed classes. Because again, that might be important, might be crucial, it might be a need in our community, but it's not relevant to our need or our mission or the services that we're talking about. So, could I actually have someone read the third paragraph on page 50? And I'll go with Siva for that fourth paragraph, and it starts with the written plan isn't about.
The written plan isn't about having strategies and outcomes fixed for all time in a document, but more about providing the ability to continuously refer back to the plan as you move forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. And so another point that Drucker stresses, besides the fact that your plan isn't fixed, your plan should adjust with your clients and the needs of your clients, is that having the board of directors incorporated into your plan and having them working with you on it is super duper important. As your board of directors is kind of like ultimately your executive leadership, so incorporating them in that planning process is really key. Drucker always points out, and this is kind of why we have a ROMA cycle instead of a ROMA line or ROMA continuum. True self-assessment is never finished. Leadership requires a constant resharpening, refocusing, and never really being satisfied. So once we go through this ROMA cycle all the way here, we do assessment, and then based on our assessment, we go through this all over again, and we refine, and we refine, and we refine. It's a never-ending cycle. All right, so we're kind of gonna leave our buddy Drucker to move on to Reginald Carter, who was another management guru. And Reginald Carter really got his start working as the Director of Planning and Evaluation for the Michigan Department of Social Services. And based on his experience there, he wrote a book called The Accountable Agency. So Drucker has his 7 questions, and so Carter has his 7 questions. And Carter basically said that at the beginning of the year, when people were submitting their budgets for their programs or their services, he would always ask them these 7 questions. How many clients are we serving? Who are they? What services do you give them? What does it cost? What does it cost per service delivered? What happens to clients as a result of the services? And what does it cost per outcome? So for our purposes today, we're really just going to focus on questions 1 through 3 and question 6. So we're on page 52. Right, page 53, that is. And so could I have someone read, I'll go with Angela, read the bullets under how many clients are you serving?
How many? Where at?
Page 50.
The top or bottom? Oh, in the gray there. All right, I'm waiting. Okay. The number of individuals projected to be served is often based on budget and other resource data. This projected number is important as you implement your plan. Secondly, agents must be able to provide unduplicated counts of their clients being served. Without this ability, clients may be counted multiple times.
Thank you so much, Angela. And really, the key point to that one is at the very end. The key there is you really want to avoid having duplicating clients and counting the same people, because if you're counting the same people over and over again, you're missing people. You're not serving people who might need to be served. And possibly you're overestimating the impact of said program. If you say that you're serving 100 people, in reality you're only serving 50, that could be a big deal. Perfect. Let's see, Nancy, could you read the bullet points under the question, who are they?
In the plan, the agency may have identified a specific target population based on the community assessment. Upon intake and assessment, the agency must collect basic demographic and characteristic data such as age, gender, income, employment, education, disability level, race, and ethnicity. What's wrong with that word? Ethnicity.
Good job. Okay, so again, our key point here is to collect demographic and characteristic data. So the real value here of data reporting lies in the ability to report out relationships among data elements. So for example, I'm just gonna ask you a general question, and don't worry, you're not supposed to be able to answer this one with any certainty, but can any of you tell me how many 18 to 35-year-old single Hispanic females with less than 2 children who are receiving welfare benefits, have a previous job history, a high school diploma or GED, and have received Head Start and emergency services from CAA? Can anyone give me that number? How many?
30%.
Ooh, it's a number. I need a number.
Oh, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I got you. And that's the point of that provide.
I want to look smart, but.
But that's the point of that entire question. Essentially, there's 11 discrete data elements there in terms of demographics. And so that might be an important, we might not be able to ask that question or answer that question off the top of our heads, but it's important to have all of that information available. So for instance, if we are developing a work training program, maybe that's our target population. And of course, as you kind of went up with that long list of things, that population is going to have specific needs. Particularly if they already have high school diplomas or GEDs, then you automatically know that you're not offering that. So again, not necessarily should we be able to pull it out of the air, but at the same time, it's important to have access and to track those demographic characteristics. So Cecilia, could I have you read the bullet points under what services do you give them?
Determine which clients received which services resulting in a specific outcome. Identify how many services are offered and how often the services are offered, and be able to recognize and assess the quality of the services offered.
Perfect, thank you. So the key point there is that services need to be linked back to those characteristics, those demographics, and those outcomes in questions 1 and 2. So kind of to go over our long example there, if our service is that we are offering these women that we've identified GED classes and high school diploma classes, then we're not taking into consideration who our client is, because that was one of the characteristics. They already have those things, so we're being redundant. All right, and then finally, Cesar, could I have you read the bullet points under what happens to clients as a result of services?
Identify the outcomes to be achieved by the client's participants in the service. Identify the number of clients who are projected to achieve the outcome and the number of clients who actually achieved the outcome. If there is only one service provided, it is easy to link it to an expected outcome or results. It is more difficult to assign or link expected outcomes where multiple services are provided. The last part of it too. There are 4 possible relationships between provisions of service and expected outcomes. One service, one outcome, one service, multiple outcomes, multiple services, one outcome, multiple services, multiple outcomes.
Right. Thank you so much. So the big takeaway there is that there should be an outcome for each service. So every service or strategy that you provide should have a definite outcome that is associated with it. Now you can, as I was just going over, you can have multiple services that result in one outcome. You can have multiple outcomes that result from multiple services and things of that nature. But basically, as long as there's a correlation, everything needs to have an outcome. Then you're doing pretty well. So what we're gonna move into here now is how do we operationalize the plan? Basically, how do we take our plan and make it into something tangible and usable and quantifiable? And just as a brief side note, speaking of plans, of course, we have our strategic plan. So how many of you have access to the strategic plan at your agency? Awesome, okay. I was waiting, I was gonna be like, guys, it's on the O drive, but all right, good deal. Great. Right, it's something that you have access to, and again, it ensures that we're all on the same page and ensures that we know which direction that we're moving in. Okay. So now we're gonna talk about outcome indicators. So we just touched on outcomes with Carolyn. So an outcome indicator, basically, when you start adding numbers, you move from having an outcome statement, which is something that we developed up there, to having an outcome indicator statement. The outcome statement is basically a general statement of change that doesn't have any numbers. And the indicator is a statement of how much something has changed or how many have changed. So generally what you want outcome indicators to be, these are the characteristics for a successful one. You want them to be measurable. You want them to be simple, clear, and understandable. You want them to be realistic and attainable. You want them to be manageable. You want them to identify a specific client or group of clients. You want them to specify a time frame. That can be really important. And you want them to measure an end, not a means to an end. Another way to phrase that would be you want them to measure an outcome, not an output, as we kind of touched on earlier. So some people will refer to the mnemonic device SMART as a way to remember the elements of a good indicator. So that would be outcome indicators should be S, specific, clear, and understandable. M for measurable, A for attainable or realistic, R for relevant, and T for time specific. Okay, so if we will turn to page 56. All right, so let's say our outcome was school success. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So, what are some ways what is school success, just in the first place? What is it? What does that mean?
Well, it defines differently defined.
Definitely, so what would one be?
Graduation.
Graduating.
Or if you talk to Stan Reynolds, it would be passing the park.
Passing standardized tests, all right, unfortunately. How about you, Nancy? What's school success?
Top grades.
Okay.
Would it depend on the school, the type of school though?
Definitely. Absolutely. That's a really good point.
So like learning a trade if it's a vocational school.
Learning a trade. How about you, Cecilia? School success. What does it mean to you?
Graduating.
Okay, that's a good one.
Oh,
That's
it's
a
on
good
there
one.
already.
Absolutely. So clearly we have a bunch of different things, that can mean school success, and none of these are wrong and none of them are mutually exclusive either. Because if you earn top grades, but your behavior is so bad that you don't graduate, then you've got a problem, right? So another way that we could look at this, other examples would be improved grades or good grades, kind of like Nancy said. We could also look at attendance, which is one that's very important.
What is it?
Good attendance. So basically showing up. And again, we can kind of see, if you pass your standardized test, but you skip class all the time, you got a problem. Another one could be improved behavior or good behavior, we'll just say. All right. So, we have all of these examples here, but identifying a good outcome indicator requires a little more specificity than what we have here. For example, if we were to say that good grades is our example here. This is our indicator. Well, in that case, what are good grades? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, is it straight A's? Is it having enough to qualify for the lottery scholarship? Is it passing and therefore graduating? We don't really know that. So we've got, let's just put a big question mark here. Because again, we haven't specified that well enough. If we were to say that school success is measured by good attendance, well, what's good attendance? Is it perfect attendance? Is it showing up enough that your parents aren't receiving letters saying, hey, your kid's not in school? Again, how do we define that? How do we measure that? How do we quantify that? And then finally, if we say it's improved behavior, well, what does good behavior in school mean? You know, again, so it's something that if we're gonna put it as our indicator, we need more specificity, relative to what it is and how many people we expect to achieve it. We need something that's quantifiable. So for example, in your book on page 56, you'll see a measure, you'll see as a sign of success, you'll see achieving competency in the English language. And one of the ways that they measure that success, that they quantify it, is through test scores on the BEST test, which is essentially kind of a battery that assesses your competency in the English language. So there's a quantifiable number there, which is kind of like what Angela was saying about standardized tests. That's why they're so popular, because it's an easy way to quantify, is someone learning, aren't they learning what they need, how is it performing? Even though it's not necessarily the best way of identifying that. It is an outcome indicator that's easily quantifiable. Okay, so if we can turn to page 57. Alright, so our outcome indicator, as we kind of touched on it, is always going to be the number of clients expected to achieve a specifically defined change. So again, if we're saying improve grades, like for our example, we can just say, clients make grades that are good enough to qualify for the lottery scholarship. Again, that's a specific change. We know how much we want their grades to improve. So it's basically the number of clients expected to achieve a specific defined change or outcome in relation to the number of people who will receive the service or treatment within a specific time frame. So in our case, let's say our service is going to be ACT pre-tutoring, right? So not everyone who receives that service is necessarily going to do well enough on their ACTs to get to college, right? Not everyone who receives that tutoring. So when we make an outcome indicator, we're basically assessing how many do we project to achieve that outcome, and in what time frame, which is another big important because, again, how long do we have with these kids? Okay, so can I actually have someone read the bullets on page 57 under example 1? And I will go with Nancy.
10 to 50 clients obtain full-time jobs above minimum wage, including benefits, and are employed 90 days after placement. Other indicators could include 20 to 50 obtain permanent full-time jobs at minimum wage without benefits and are employed 90 days after placement. 10 to 50 obtain part-time temporary jobs. 5 to 50 improve skills and experience on-the-job training programs. 5 to 50 remain unemployed after 180 days in the program.
Perfect, thank you so much. And so here what we see is really that importance of specificity and the importance of that time frame. Because it's not necessarily just enough to say, this client got a job. Can this client keep a job? Because that's important. So that's what that additional time element does. It allows us to measure that outcome, that long-term success of that program and that service. So in some cases, outcomes achieved by recipients of a service can fall along a continuum. So that's what Nancy just gave us. The outcome of employment and training services to clients is 50 clients obtaining a job. So on a continuum, and this is going to be a really, really small continuum, where we have unemployed and employed. So when our client receives a job, they've moved across the continuum. In other cases, particularly when we make a referral, there may be multiple outcome indicators that cross a number of domains. So a good example of this would be the outcome of providing case management services to 20 families. And your outcome could be self-sufficiency, but again, your case management probably entails several different services and programs, you know. Could be counseling, could be financial literacy, all of those things. Your ultimate outcome is self-sufficiency, but you know, because it crosses so many domains, including socioeconomic, education, it's not as simple as just this little continuum line we have here. Okay, so moving on to outcome indicators. So our outcome looks like we have, and I guess we can kind of combine these just for the purposes of brevity. We have saving enough money for college, and we have being accepted to college. So what we say for our outcome is that clients will save enough money to be accepted to college and save enough money to go to college and receive adequate training on how to be accepted to college. Kind of combining those. So they will have both the means financially and the means intellectually or experientially in order to go to college. Does that sound fair? Okay. So we already have our services here. We have our strategies. So first of all, how many people are we expecting to pull in to our program here?
Well, how much money do we have?
Ah, that's a good question.
My first question. And how much staffing do we have? What are our inputs?
Very important. For this purposes, because we're really just kind of doing a hypothetical situation here, let's assume that we're running this program out of Community Action Agency. So we've got all our CSPG funding, and we've got about, what, 30 of us? So just for that sake, we'll assume that we're working within our own agency. So how many people can we pull into this program, and how many people do we expect to achieve our goal of attaining both the financial and intellectual means in order to attend college?
Cesar knows that one better.
Are we just gonna mentor them in a way, or are we actually gonna provide them with money for?
Oh, we're providing them those services. So we're giving them the informational classes, we're giving them the IDAs, we're counseling them, and we're giving them the pre-tutoring.
Ideas will depend on how much money we're gonna actually give them each one.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a 4-to-1 match, the way we're doing it here,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have them save money so that they can learn how to save money
Mm-hmm.
up to $1,000. We give them $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have $50,000, we just divide that by the 4,000 that we actually give to.
Sounds like a plan. All right. So how much would that be?
It's just for you.
11,
Yeah.
about 11 point,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, 'cause we still have to pay ourselves.
Let's
So
say.
10.
Yeah, we can just round down
Yeah.
for the purposes of our example. All right. So outcome indicator blank out of 10 will achieve. We already know what our outcome is. So how many are we expecting to succeed in the sense that these people will complete the program and they will have those, basically, we have a really easy way to measure it because our measurement is basically who gets accepted to college and who goes to college the next semester. So how many of these people, of these kids that we're accepting in this program, are we expecting to go into college the following semester?
10.
10 out of 10.
100%.
I say part of the
Six.
way we let them into the program is they already got accepted to a college. Then we can do 10 out of 10.
That's true, but see, one of our outcomes is be accepted to a college.
Yeah. So we already got that outcome out of the way.
So
win-win.
Easy.
I say 6.
6?
Yeah, for these purposes, we sort of have to, I know that we wanna be 10 out of 10, but we need to be, it's everything else remaining equal, how many can we expect, in reasonable, that all of these outcomes will be, and I don't think 10 out of 10 is I think that's what CAAs need to be, is a little more realistic, that you're not gonna get 10 out of 10 to complete these. So we just need to pick a number that we feel comfortable
I
with.
think 6, because then you don't know who's gonna get pregnant, who's gonna get married.
Exactly.
Who's gonna just get on drugs and not
Stuff
care what's
or,
going on.
you know, You know, says, all right, I know you deal with that. People drop out of the IDA program. They don't go to the financial literacy classes. People might just be like, you know what? I'm gonna go into the military, get my GI Bill when I get out, that's how I'll go to college. You know, so you have to take into account for all of those things. All right.
One of the things you might think about is that where in this step are you going to count them? And we're gonna get more into that. But it might be if they don't set up an IDA program, they're not counted. I mean, or maybe they don't go to the college planning class, and so if they don't, or they don't finish it, so you don't count them because they can't go further. So that's why we need to look at, you know, not having 10 out of 10.
I have a question.
Yes.
Alright, now, if we're looking back at my ABE thing here, and it has a tens ABE classes, it's an output. This
Right.
one's an outcome.
Okay, so one of the things that you notice on that question in parentheses is they have met attendance requirements. In parentheses. I know they have that on the
No,
answer
it
sheet.
says completes under meets attendance, but attends is just attends.
And attends, they have it as an output.
Output.
That's because
Sir.
it is an output.
But that one's an outcome.
Right, because we're saying how many of these people will achieve the goal of going to college next semester. That's
Oh,
our
so
outcome.
this is not attendance.
This isn't attendance, no.
Ah, okay.
This is how many people
I'm
we're
just
gonna have
saying.
attending, you know what I mean? We're gonna have 10 people attending, this is how many we've selected to
Okay.
attend. But we're only expecting 6 of them to achieve the outcome
I
of going to
gotcha.
college the following semester.
So it is an output because that's just saying that's what they did.
Right, this is just how many people we let in the door.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I have it now.
Gotcha. Okay, so again, another important part, that timeout. How long is this gonna take?
2 years.
So so 6 out of 10 people will achieve the goal of receiving the financial and intellectual capabilities that they need to go to college in 2 years.
Yeah, cause they'll come and sign up when they're like sophomores or
Mhm.
juniors.
Okay.
They too will.
Sounds good?
Because it takes that long for some kids to save $1,000.
That's very true.
So 1 to 2 years?
We'll just specify and say 2. We'll give them the benefit of that. If they do it in 1, that's awesome. We've done an excellent job. It's because our strategies and services are on point. But we'll just say 2 years. And again, this is just an estimate that we have just come up with based on more estimates, basically. So yeah, it's definitely not anything binding or any reflection. So this is going to be our outcome indicator. So we're going to indicate that on the logic model. That is going to go right there. Then I'll go ahead and hang this up when we're eating lunch, so we have that right beside
You
us.
know, if we just wanna have them get lunch and then, or do you wanna pay, yeah. let's
I'll just
finish
wrap up
this.
MPIs, because that'll be super quick.
Okay.
'Cause we all know about MPIs the hard way. So we'll turn to page 59. So our friends, the MPIs, our favorite part of NASCAP. So originally the MPIs were developed in order to balance the localized nature of the work that all CAs do with the outcomes and the need to create a more uniform and accurate national accounting system. So basically it's standardized while still acknowledging that every CA is different, we all offer different services, and we all have different strengths. But it's still some kind of standard thing that we can all achieve to. And of course the MPIs, there is a section on them where we have blank lines on them, where you can indicate if you're offering other services and results of that as well. So just like our funding, they try to keep it really flexible with our MPIs as well. Could I have someone read the third paragraph on page 59? I will go with, I don't know why I keep saying someone, I will go with Cesar.
From the 2003 part?
Yes, just that third paragraph.
From the 2003 NASCAP report, the community services network is moving to balance the localized nature of its work and outcomes with the needs to create a more uniform and accurate national accounting of how community action improves conditions and opportunities for low-income families and their communities.
Thank you so much. So again, about the MPIs, they are about community action, not just about CSBG. outcomes should be counted and reported from all relevant community programs and activities. So again, the big push is that they are standardization, they allow for a uniform measurement process, but they're not all there is to CAAs. However, NPIs are limited, they're really just the most common set of outcomes that we can measure. So if we'll turn to page 60, could I have someone read, and I will go with Anne's